What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. For the final video in 2023, we'll be goblin riding into the sunset as we aim to go into 2024 with a bang. So I'd like to wish everyone a happy New Year's and thank everyone watching for being here with me. Up on the screen, you'll see a picture of a poll that I made yesterday, as well as my Discord, which has a link in the description below. Today, I'll be following up on the self-imposed challenge that I intend to back up. So for today's video, we'll be starting this one entirely different to every video that I've done on the channel since I started, and on the screen, you can see a Runick Goblin Rider list. And if you don't know what these cards do, stay tuned as I'll walk you through the combos momentarily. The list you're seeing on the screen is the competitive version of the list that doesn't brick, so this is not the list that doesn't brick, but just the competitive version. The consistency is still pretty insane, but you have to cut some consistency if you want the deck to truly work outside of solo mode. The idea behind it is that you have 18 level 3 monsters, 2 search bells that grab level 3s with the Goblin Biker Grand Entrance, and then you have a total of 17 Runick quick plays that can summon out Munin, which happens to be a level 3 monster, giving you a grand total of 37 cards in a 40 card deck that grants you access to a level 3 monster. If you're wondering what the point of that is, it's because with 2 level 3s, you can go into your big head, and this is a new Exceed coming in Phantom Nightmare, which happens to let you full combo with your Goblin Rider cards. This deck is reminiscent to Runick Sprite, but the old Runick Sprite decks that really didn't have any level 2 hand traps that you could normal summon, and typically they played gammas with the driver, some lists played emergency teleports, but Runick Sprite didn't have the luxury of being able to play hand traps like Ash or Bell that you could just normal summon and were conveniently the same level as the rest of the monsters in the main deck. Unlike Sprite that has 3 Sprite starter, this deck also has the 3 tour guides plus the 2 terror tops. If you're wondering about the list that doesn't brick, the one you're looking at isn't too far off. As you can see here, the list that doesn't brick is because it cut down on the hand traps, increased the Runick count, cut a fountain for another way to get a level 3 on board with instant fusion, and that's all you really need, as it's impossible to brick on the Goblin Rider monsters because Assaulter happens to search your Grand Meeting, which is also an extra normal summon for a Goblin monster, so if you have another Goblin monster and you add this to your hand, you can just get that extra normal summon, giving you full combo, and Cold-Blooded can special summon a Goblin from hand. There's only a 4-card hand in this entire deck which would do nothing. The Mach Speed, the Takatom Borg, the Runick Fountain, which we only play 1 copy of to make sure that we don't brick on it, and then the 1 copy of the Clutter, and anything else that you get from that point for your 5th card will either be an extender or starters like Tour Guide and Terror Top, which gets you access into Big Head, and at worst, you're just playing Runick. So if this is something that you happen to see and like, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons would mean a whole lot, as it goes a long way in supporting the channel, and now I'll take you into the combos. So if you're interested to see how this deck quote-unquote doesn't brick as far as the competitive version works, the first thing that we're going to start with is Tour Guide. Of course, if you go uninterrupted here, you can special summon out your Goblin Rider Cold-Blooded, and this is a new card that reads, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can special summon 1 Goblin monster from your hand, except Cold-Blooded. If this card is in your graveyard, you can detach 1 material from a monster on the field, and if you do, special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of Goblin Rider Cold-Blooded once per turn, and you'll notice that being able to detach from Exceed monsters is a recurring theme in this archetype, and keep in mind that it can be from anywhere on the field, including your opponent's monsters, which is a really strong aspect about this deck. But we're now going to be able to go into our Big-Headed, and the Big-Headed is the rank 3 that reads, it takes 2 level 3 monsters. If this card is Exceed summoned, you can add 1 Goblin monster from your deck to your hand. If a materials is detached from a monster on the field, you can target 1 other face-up monster on the field, attach it to this card as a material. During the end phase, you can attach 1 Goblin monster from your deck to this card as material. You can only use each effect of Big Head once per turn. And now we're going to use its effect on summon in order to net ourselves a search, and we'll be getting ourselves the Assaulter, Hide Your Wife and Kids. As this card reads, if this card is in your hand, you can detach 1 material from a monster on the field, and if you do, special summon this card card. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Goblin Rider spell trap from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of Goblin Rider Assaulter once per turn. And we're going to be able to detach a material from our big head so that we can special summon it, and then we'll be using its effect in order to get ourselves a search for the Goblin Biker Grand Entrance. And this is a regular spell card that reads, add one Goblin monster from your deck to your hand, then you can detach one material from a monster on the field. And if you do, special summon one level 4 or lower monster from your hand. And the cool thing about this is that you can add one regardless of if an Exceed monster is on the field. The second one reads, you can banish this card from your graveyard as a cost, detach one material from a monster on the field, then you can add one Goblin monster from your graveyard to your hand. And another really cool thing about that effect is that if you don't have any Goblin monsters in the graveyard but do have them attached to a Goblin Exceed monster, then because you have a valid target that you can detach from one of your Exceed monsters, you can detach it, get it in the graveyard, and then you'll be able to add it back to the hand. So I just thought that was really cool about this card. And you can only use each effect of Grand Arrival once per turn. So we're going to use its effect in order to net ourselves a search for our next new monster, and this is the Clutter, which reads, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one Goblin monster in your graveyard except Clutter. Special summon it. During your opponent's main phase, if this card is in your graveyard, quick effect, you can detach one material from a monster on the field, and if you do, special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use each effect of Clutter once per turn, and this is a pretty important card to the archetype for the follow-up that you get off of it, as you're able to revive the Dug, and then you can get the search for another spell and continue on from there. But now going to special summon it, as we'll be able to use its effect in order to get back the Cold-Blooded, and this will give us 3 level 3 monsters on board. And now there's a ton of ways that you can go about this, but the only way that I'm going to play this is according to the deck that I have. So if you see that I'm not doing the Ghost Trick stuff or the Ashura card that happens to be a monster negate, the reason is that I'm sticking to what I play in this deck. And we're going to go into the Dante, which is something I happen to play in this deck because, as you saw, we're on Runick cards, and the Goblin Rider monsters actually don't mind being in the graveyard. So we're going to mill just one in this case. Normally you would mill 3, but just for the video and for the combo so that I don't add anything random into these videos, I'm going to mill 1 dead card, and we're then going to be able to use the effect of the Cold-Blooded, detaching a material from Dante so that we can then go into our SP Little Knight, and then from here with our 2 monsters that don't have anything attached to them, we can use them to go into the F0. Now I would like to point out that if you want to bypass going into the Dante and play something else so that you can keep the Goblin Rider Exceed on board so that you can get that potential attach in the end phase, then that's perfectly fine. But the reason I don't think it's mandatory is because during your opponent's main phase, you can just use the Goblin Biker Clutter, detach something from the F0 after you've used its effect the first time, and then you can just get your follow-up like that. Of course, it assumes that you go uninterrupted, but you will have the Runick cards to be able to bait certain hand traps or interruptions that your opponent may have for you. The second combo that we have here is the second 1-card combo of the deck, and this just takes Terror Top. So again, as long as you really have rank 3 access, you'll be able to get to full combo because you're able to get into the big head. Use the big head, which you may want to summon in attack mode, but we're going to then use the effect of the Dug, detach a material, special summon it, use its effect in order to get ourselves a copy of Grand Entrance, and then we'll be able to use the effect of Grand Entrance, getting ourselves an add, as we'll get ourselves the Cold-Blooded. We'll then be able to special summon it as we detach a material. In order to do so, we'll then be able to go into the Dante. We'll mill 1 again. Normally you would mill 3 as stated earlier. Then we'll be able to use the effect of the Biker spell in the graveyard, as we'll then be able to detach 1, add it back to hand, and then from here we can go into our Utopic F0, as then we'll be able to use the effect of the Goblin Biker Cold-Blooded in the graveyard so that we can special summon the card that we added back to hand. And like this, you'll either go into your SP Little Knight, or you can go into the big head, which again you would want to summon in attack mode so that you can get the extra form of disruption through it when you detach a material from the F0. Now, whether you go into SP Little Knight or the Big Head depends on the matchup and depends on the situation, because if you do need the follow-up, it may be a little bit more important. That said, I'll take you on to the next combo. Now, before I get onto the Runick combos, I just want to show Tour Guide plus the Terror Top, because having these two cards together is really insane for this deck, as you just have access to 4 level 3s, and you saw that 1 level 3 is essentially full combo. So we're going to special summon out the Takatomborg into our Big Head, use the effect of the Big Head, get ourselves the Goblin Biker Dog, and special summon out the Dog, as we'll be able to detach a material, get the search for the Goblin Biker entrance, which will give us the ability to add a card from our deck to our hand, as long as it's a Goblin Biker monster, but we'll add the Boon, the Mock Speed, and this card reads, during the main phase, if this card is in your hand or graveyard, quick effect, you can detach 1 material from a monster on the field, and if you do, special summon this card. Until the end of the next turn, after this effect resolves, you cannot special summon Boon, the Mock Speed. So it's important to note that once you use it on your turn as an extender, you won't be able to detach something from your opponent, but that really doesn't matter since it's so easy to get back to hand and then detach stuff during your turn or your second turn. But we're then going to special summon it off of the card, as we'll then be able to go into our Dante. Again, we'll normal summon the Tour Guide here. If you want to mill 1 or 3 with the Dante, it depends on you, but we're then going to be able to go into our SP Little Knight. You can actually make something like Cherubini here as well, because it just takes 2 level 3s and you can send something to the graveyard. So if you want to get away with playing good level 3 that you can send to the graveyard, you can do that as well. But we're then going to use the entrance in order to get ourselves a Mock Speed back to our hand. We'll then be able to revive the Goblin Biker Cold-Blooded with its own effect, use its effect on field to special summon out the Mock Speed, and now we'll be able to go into our F0, and then from here we can go into our Big Head, giving us 3 interactions with our opponent via the F0, which is a monster negate. When this detaches something, you'll be able to attach something from the field onto it, as long as it's a monster. And then you have the SP Little Knight, which just happens to be a disruption on its own whenever your opponent activates a card or effect. Now for this next combo, we'll get onto the Runick cards, and this one starts with Bug along with any Runick spell. This is what I mean by any 2 level 3s as combo, as you're just going to be able to activate your Runick Quick Play spell, and then you can bring out the Munin, go into the Big Head, use the effect of the Big Head for the search. You'll get yourself the Clutter this time around, as then you can add Cold-Blooded here, which is really cool since you'll then be able to detach the Goblin Biker from the graveyard, and now you're going to have the ability to use the effect of the Cold-Blooded, bring out the Clutter, use the effect of the Clutter, and then the Clutter will bring back the Doug. So you are playing pretty hard into Nib if you've noticed with these combos. The same can be said for Droll and something like Shifter, so basically every weakness that almost every deck has this format. And we'll then go into our Dante, as we'll then be able to detach 1 to 3. Then from here we can use the effect of the Cold-Blooded to bring itself back, detaching Clutter. We'll then go into our SP Little Knight. You can also go into a rank 3 if you would like to, so just keep that SP Little Knight in mind as an option rather than what you would always go for, because if you want to go for the Big Head, then by all means that's what you go for. But with this, I'll take you on to the next combo. For this next combo, we have Mock Speed plus any other Runick spell, and we're going to start here by activating the Runick spell. We'll be able to bring out the Munin, and like this, we have access into our Big Head. We'll use the effect of the Big Head, as we'll then be able to grab ourselves the Doug, use the effect of the Doug in order to detach one, special summon it, get ourselves a search. In this case, I believe we're going to search ourselves the next new card. This is Grand Meeting of the Goblin Bikers. It reads, Goblin monsters you control gain 300 attack. Each Goblin monster you control. During your main phase, you can normal summon 1 Goblin monster in addition to your normal summon set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. You can target 2 Goblin monsters you control that have a level and activate one of these effects. The level of one of them becomes the level of the other, or the levels of both monsters become their combined original levels. And this is a really strong effect because of the flexibility that it provides this deck and just the different kinds of plays that it brings to the deck. As you see, all we've been doing is rank 3 spam going into F0 and SP Little Knight, but now we have a second option that I'll be showing here. As we're going to be able to activate it, we'll then use the effect of the Mock Speed in Graveyard reviving itself as we detach one from the Goblin Seed, and then we'll be able to use the effect of the Continuous spell, making both into level 6s. It's also important to note that the attack boost boost can make your Goblin Bikers pretty big. So if your opponent is low on life points because they happen to pay for something, then you can swing for game pretty easily. But we're going to now go into our Beatrice, go into the end phase. We'll get ourselves an attach. If you have the clutter in the graveyard, you can get yourself the Dug in the end phase. Then you can use the effect of clutter during your opponent's turn, detach the Dug, and then the clutter will be able to revive the Dug, giving you that follow-up. So that is kind of important to say before I take you on to the next part where we're going to use the Beatrice. And as you see, we do have a way to transaction rollback, which means that this deck will be able to do the EEV play. It'll also be able to do the Ghost Meat. The next combo that I want to show is a second iteration of Mach Speed plus the Runic Quick Play, and it can be any Runic Quick Play. So we're just going to special summon out the Munin. We'll then normal summon the Mach Speed. We'll go into our Big Head, use the effect of the Big Head. Again, an Imperm here does kind of hurt, but that's why you play the Runic Quick Plays. It's to potentially bait something. But we'll then be able to use the effect of the Goblin Biker Dog, as we'll then be able to special summon it, use the effect in order to get ourselves a search for the Grand Entrance, then be able to activate it as we'll get ourselves a search. The clutter, we'll then be able to detach one, special summon out the clutter, use the effect of the clutter, bringing back the Mach Speed, and then from here we can go into our Dante, use the effect of Dante. We're going to mill one, normally you'd mill three, and then from here we're going to use the effect of Mach Speed, detaching one from Dante to get access into another level 3, go into our Utopic F0, and now we have access into our SP Little Knight, or you can go into the Big Head onto the end phase to get that attach. If you don't happen to have access to Dug for whatever reason, you can get it from deck because we do have the clutter in graveyard. So as you see, every combo in this video happened to be a 2-card combo because there's just a ton of them, especially when you consider the Runic Quick Plays, any level 3 being able to get you into full combo. And then there's just versatility of what happens if you have an extra level 3 where you may be able to go for the Beatrice and whatnot. But we're going to be able to normal summon the Blooded, as we'll use its effect in order to special summon out the Biker, use the effect of the Biker in order to add ourselves a copy of the Goblin Bikers, and then we'll be able to go into our Big Head, use the effect of the Big Head to add ourselves the Mach Speed. We'll then be able to special summon out the Mach Speed, detaching one, use the effect of the Cold-Blooded in the graveyard, detaching one again. As we'll now have 2 level 3s on board, we can activate the meeting so that we can turn our monsters into level 6. This way we can go into the Beatrice play. If you're going second, you can make something else, but from here we'll then be able to detach one from Beatrice. If you are playing game 1 and don't want to main deck transaction rollback, what you can do here is send the Goblin Biker Clutter, then the other option that you have is to get a Runic Quick Play in the spell card so that you have something to shuffle back off of the fountain if that's the play that's better off for you at the moment. A 2-card combo, and it's because it's a different iteration of the last one, and then I'll get you onto the test hand. So we're going to normal summon the Cold-Blooded, special summon out the Biker, use the effect of the Dug in order to get ourselves the Grand Entrance, go into our Big Head, use the effect of the Big Head, we'll be able to get ourselves the Clutter, as we'll then be able to use the Grand Entrance in order to search ourselves a copy of the Mach Speed. We'll then special summon out the Clutter, use the effect of the Clutter in order to revive the Cold-Blooded. We'll then be able to go into a Dante, as we'll then use the effect of Dante. You can detach and mill 3 here, or 1, depends on what you want to do. We'll then be able to use the effect of the Mach Speed, detaching one, as this will get us another level 3 on board. We also have the Cold-Blooded in the graveyard, which hasn't used its effect, so we'll detach one from the Dante, go into our F0, and now we have access into either the Big Head, or you can go into your SP Little Knight, and then we'll be able to end our turn with the 2 disruptions that you have through the Goblin Rider being able to attach when the F0 negates, and then you also have the Goblin Biker Clutter, which can also happen to trigger Big Head, as long as your opponent has a monster that you can attach to it and want to actually take from them. Onto the test hand, and this is the only one that I'll show. As you can see, the deck is pretty straightforward in what you want to do. Get 2 level 3s, and then depending on which play you want to make, you go from there. And as you'll see, my hand is Runic Fountain. We then have 3 Runic Quick Plays, so the ideal setup for this hand, as we'll then be able to use the Storm in order to get ourselves the Munin. We'll then normal summon the Goblin Biker Dog, use the effect of Dug, which will be able to get us into the Grand Entrance, and we'll be able to go into our big head, use the effect of the big head in order to search ourselves the clutter, as from here we'll then be able to the grand entrance. We'll then get ourselves the add for the cold-blooded, detach one as well as special summon out the cold-blooded, use the cold-blooded which will be able to special summon the clutter, use the effect of the clutter to revive the Doug, and then from here you can go into a rank 3 as we'll go into the Dante, use the Dante, detach, and mill as many as you want. As you see, we do hit a Talkatom board, the Mock Speed, and the Runic Slumber, so I am doing 3 this time around, and the Runic Slumber is just perfect because we already have the Storm in the graveyard. The minute that we use just one Runic Quick Play, we get the draw 3, which is just nuts, but we also have the Mock Speed in the graveyard, which means that we have an extra form of extending. We're then going to use the effect of the Big Head in this case because we have that extra level 3 through the Mock Speed, and then we're going to be able to detach the Doug. We'll then go into another rank 3, in this case another copy of the Goblin Biker, and we do this so that we can go into our Goblin Biker, the F0 play, as we'll then use the effect of the Grand Entrance, detaching the last card to get ourselves some follow-up via the Doug, and we'll be able to go into the F0, into topic Future Dragon, then activate the Runic Fountain, and with this we can pass on to our opponent. To keep in mind, you also get that attach in the end phase off of the big head. With all of the combos out of the way, we can get onto the deck profile, and the only changes that I've considered making, of course the Dante is kind of iffy, though being able to mill Runic Quick Plays and potential Goblin Riders is kind of nice. The other thing that I would like to talk about is the 3 copies of the Big Head. There is a chance that you could play 2 of them because the Grand Entrance happens to recur them from the graveyard if you need to, and it allows you to play a second copy of Munin. I think that the F0 is something that you may have to play for now until we get something else that's worth going into. Of course, the downside comes with the fact that you actually have to commit to that extra deck space. As you see, we have the Cherubini as one of the options that you can play as well. I would also like to talk about something like Mudora that you can side deck if you would like to help yourself in the grind game, as you can not only interrupt your opponent but then put back some of your own stuff. Then there's something like Econ as well. Since we play so many Runic Quick Plays, you can just special summon out a Runic monster, Econ something, and if you don't want to play the Goblin's Crazy Beast, which is another new card, and I'll read that one right now. It takes 2+ level 6 monsters per turn. Quick effect, you can target one spell trap on the field, detach 2 materials from a monsters on the field, and if you do, attach that card to this card as material. The entire point of this is when your opponent uses the Witch effect in order to get themselves the original Sinful Spoils or whatever they go for, then you can just steal it and attach it, and it doesn't even go to the graveyard. Next effect reads, if a monsters you control would be destroyed by card effect, you can detach 1 material from this card instead. If this card is in your graveyard, you can special summon this card. Then you can attach 1 Goblin monster from your graveyard to it as material. You can only use this effect, Goblin's Crazy Beast, once per duel. A really nice utility rank 6 that we have here. The Sheridan is the other thing that you can play if you want to play the Econs. Then I've also seen people play the full armor, or whatever you call them, the XYZ armor cards. And again, this is just something else that takes up a lot of extra deck space, and I don't quite think it's worth it. And as you saw, the Ashura King is another rank 3 that you can play if you would like to, since you do happen to swarm the field with a lot of level 3s, and you can make it quite easily, but I just don't think that it's worth the resource investment to do so, and I think going into something like F0, SP, or just your big head is better overall. Then for the final Goblin Biker card, we have Stampede. It's a continuous trap card, and during the main phase, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, Exceed summon using only Goblin monsters you control as material. If you control a Goblin Exceed monster, you can target 1 effect monster on the field, detach 1 material from a monster on the field, and if you do, negate the targeted monster's effects until the end of this turn. Only use 1 Goblin Rider Stampede effect per turn, and only once that turn. And quite frankly, we don't even need this card because we have Runic Freezing Curse, which is just infinitely better for a deck like this, and it's not a brick, and it happens to get you into a level 3 as well. So have our transaction rollback cards, and the Shuffle Truffle, which is what I like to call this. A really cool card coming out of Phantom Nightmare. It reads, declare 1 monster card name. Neither player can special summon monsters with that original name for the rest of this turn except from the graveyard. You can banish this card from your graveyard and declare 1 monster card name. Neither player can activate the effects of monsters on the field with that original name for the rest of this turn. You can only use 1 Shuffle Truffle effect per turn, and only once that turn. Finally, I would like to talk about the weaknesses of the deck as mentioned earlier. Nib, Shifter, and Droll, mortal enemies of this deck, are ways that you can play around them somewhat. Side of the Nib, which is something that you may just have to side in something like cross out for, whatever you want to do in order to bypass being shot by a Nib. But the cool thing about this also is that if your opponent does draw a Nib, there isn't always combo hand that you'll be drawing. Sometimes you'll just be playing Runick, so it's like 50-50 that the Nib will work as well. The only real things are the Shifter and the Droll, which will really just work at about any time. With all of that out of the way, since I've happen to explain everything within the start of the video and through the combos, I'll just get onto the card by card, and we have the 3 tour guides, Terratops with the 1 Togetomborg, the 2 Dug, the 1 Clutter, the 2 Mach Speed, the 1 Glutted, the 1 Storm, the Runic Fountains, the 1 copy of the Dispelling, the 3 copies of the Tip, the 3 copies of the Curse, the 3 copies of the Destruction, 3 copies of Flame, 3 copies of Slumber, 2 copies of Grand Entrance, and you'll see that we're on a 2-2-2 ratio. Anything else that I should explain here is any 2 level 3s equals full Goblin Rider combo. Thing to point out is that these cards are very easily searchable. The minute that you get into your big head, it means that you're adding the Goblin Biker Dog. You special summon out the Dog, and it gets you into the Grand Entrance. So this is just something that I don't think that you need to shove in at 3. You'll almost always be getting it anyways. I have the 1 copy of the Grand Meeting, the 3 Bell, the 3 Ash Blossoms. Onto the extra deck, we have the Runick main, we then have the 1 Gary, the 1 Munin, which can be a second Munin if you want to take out 1 Goblin Biker Big Head. We then have the 2 Hugins, the 3 Big Heads, the 1 Dante, Beatrice, the Crazy Beast, which can also be Sheridan or any other rank 6, like the Dragulus, which is a Book of Moon for special summon monsters. We have the Typhon, our Utopic Future Zero package with the SP Little Knight to round out the deck profile. Everyone who's made it this far, I'd like to thank you for watching and for the 600 plus subs. I truly appreciate your support, and now that we've monetized the channel, giving us access to supers and memberships means that more awesome stuff is on the horizon. To get the channel membership, just click on the description below, and there will be a link that takes you there. You'll also notice a free Discord link that I've made for us too. If you want to support me as a content creator, even if you can't donate supers or get a membership for the channel, clicking on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons help a lot too. For those wondering, I do plan on making updates to the channel as the support on the channel grows. Anyways, I hope to see you on the next one. It's Bones, signing out, and Happy New Year's.